Now, all returning diasporans have, or at some point will have property both at home in Africa and possibly abroad. So, what happens to all of this wealth, quote unquote, that we amass, all the hard work when we are gone? Let's find out in the next 10 minutes. Now, I recognize that this subject of death is a tough one for many Africans because culturally we are attuned to not talk about issues of death and its related sisters. In part because there are certain assumptions that when you bring up issues of death, then you're anticipating some bad outcomes and things of that sort. So culturally, Africans are a little queasy about talking about death. And so the issue of writing wills is a very, very foreign concept for many of us who are born and raised in Africa. So in this video, I just want to share with you some of the nuggets I've picked up about safeguarding your property beyond the grave through wills in Kenya. Now, remember, this should not be misconstrued as legal advice. I'm just trying to get you to think about something that typically we Africans don't think about until things begin to fall apart. So again, remember, I'm not a lawyer, and so don't take my word for. Take my word for what it is, and I encourage you to speak to lawyers if you need any help with that. In fact, we have in-house attorneys that we work with. So if you need one, just hit me up on the number below. But before we do that, welcome to Karateng, friends. This is a village in Western Kenya, in Kisumu. We absolutely love our home. It is a wonderful, lovely Saturday morning. The sun is out, the birds are chirping, everything you can expect from Africa in the morning. And the kids are just having breakfast, and we are looking forward to a very relaxed weekend with the kids. Today, I'm not planning on going anywhere, but usually it starts like that. Next thing I know, I'll get a phone call, and I'm heading out to a construction site. But I'm hoping today is one of the few days I'll spend a whole day at home. If you're meeting us for the first time, I am a Kenyan American returnee who is working hard to return permanently to the village. And so I'm involved in construction and real estate things. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, if you're doing remodeling, you want to build a house, reach out. We will connect you with the right experts. Contact me in the number below. So anyway, let's start with the basics. If you don't know what a will is a legal declaration by a person of their wishes with regard to distribution of their property after they exit the stage. And in Kenya, you can actually have a written will, or you can just have an oral will. Keeping in mind that many African communities, the oral word means a whole lot. So legally, these two options are recognized. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but yes, in Kenya, you can either have a written will or an oral will. And when you're done with it, you can actually still destroy it while you're still alive. And there are many ways to do that. Number one, you can write a new will that sort of ends up superseding the previous one. Or when you get married, after writing a will, that act of marriage can actually change what was there before under certain conditions. Or if you choose, you can simply get the will and just destroy it so that there's no evidence of it. So in Kenya, though, in general, I would say that even those of us who live in diaspora and write wills outside the jurisdiction of Kenya can still bring your foreign wills. However, there's a legal process you have to go through for that foreign will to be recognized. And typically, you have to go through a high court for that to happen. So if you are one of those returnees who already has an existing will that was drawn outside Kenya, be sure to work with an attorney to have it accepted within the Kenyan system, because that is possible. So I know most people already are familiar with wills and why we do this, but if you're one of the two people who are not familiar, here are some of the 6 good reasons you want to think about a will. Number one, this is one of the easier ways to avoid conflict within families. A lot of diasporans have very terrible family members. And even if you don't realize it now, people can change. And when you're gone, these terrible family members can be a nightmare for the people you care for. So one way to avoid conflict with people trying to scramble to get your property here and there is to write a will that specifically indicates who is supposed to get what. Because I'm sure you've seen this. Relatives can be terrible, especially when you have young kids. If you die, your kids are still young, relatives can be quite a nightmare. So a simpler way is to just write a will or make sure there's a will to explain how your property will be distributed. Number two, when you have a will in place, it really makes it faster to do what we call estate administration. When my brother passed on in 2022 unexpectedly, and he was still in his 30s, so nobody expected him to have a will because of his age. He died unexpectedly, and it took us such a long time to put together his affairs. Thankfully for my family, we work as a single unit. My siblings are amazing, and so it was not an issue on our part as siblings. It was more of an issue that he didn't have anything written, and so it took us longer than necessary to just get his stuff together. And then, of course, when you write a will, you kind of ensure that your assets will go to the intended persons. Because again, as I said earlier, many of us have good relatives, but other folks have terrible relatives. Or there are people who will take your property that are not related to you at all. And so when you write a will, it really helps to make sure that things go to the right people. And then your will can also help us identify what is tied to your name. Unfortunately, there's a segment of African men who have this very terrible habit that we tend to collect property and we make sure that our spouses know nothing about these things. Now, the day we die is when people find out that we own stuff that were either stolen by other people or stuff that just disappear. So a lot of African fathers tend to do that we do things privately that even our wives have no idea. So write a will with whatever is tied to your name. And especially the joint ventures that you do with your friends out there. Don't make that mistake. And then your wills also help you provide for your dependents beyond the grave. If you have things that are supposed to generate money, that could be a way to care for your people even beyond the grave. And then some people actually use wills to document their burial preferences. If you care about that. Personally, if you were to ask me, I couldn't care less what happens to my body. They could donate it to science, they could cremate it, they could whatever. So personally, I see funerals as a way to really honor the people who are still alive. And so I would not care to write anything about my funeral. I'm like, you do what works for you. You are the one who's still alive. You're the one who lives with that headache. When I'm dead, I'm dead. But some people really care to really document how they want to be buried. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you use a will to do that. So what really constitutes a valid will in Kenya? Number one, whoever is writing the will needs to be 18, at least 18. And then if it's a written will, you want to make sure it's signed. You need at least 2 witnesses. And a witness who is also a beneficiary should also have their signature attested to by 2 other additional independent witnesses. So you want to make sure that part of witness is covered well, depending on who is involved. And then if you're making an oral will, there should be, of course, like the other one, have a minimal of 2 witnesses. However, an oral will shall only be valid if it is made within a certain time frame. So talk to your attorney and find out what that means. And then a subsequent will shall be valid only if the testator expressly revokes previous existing wills. So you want to be careful with that too. So again, in Kenya, there is no mandatory requirement to register a will. As I mentioned earlier, a marriage in some cases can actually revoke a previous will unless it is made in contemplation of marriage with a specified person. So again, just to repeat, in Kenya, it is perfectly legal to have both a written will it's perfectly normal to have a written will or an oral will. Either one would work as long as they are witnesses and you meet the conditions that I've described above. Now, that said, in Kenya, again, there is no requirement to notarize a will. I know in the Western world, there's so many restrictions and requirements and all that. In Kenya, probably not. As long as you sign it and you've got witnesses, you're fine, whether you're doing written or oral wills. And again, while you may choose to store a copy of your will in electronic form, I believe it's mandatory to keep the original hard copy of the will somewhere. If it's a written will, you want to have the actual hard copy somewhere. And I've been told that court registries in Kenya provide these depository services that you can take advantage of. So again, I'd be curious to learn from people who are more educated on this matter. If there's something I missed or something I misspoke about, please let us know in the comment section, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you and bye.